Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, the boxer Chris Eubank Jr. says that he eased off during Saturday's title fight against Nick Blackwell because he knew that his rival was seriously hurt. Blackwell is in an induced coma after collapsing shortly after the bout. Eubank's father, himself a former world champion, told reporters that he told his son not to aim for Blackwell's head to avoid causing damage. We'll hear from both in a moment, but first our sports correspondent Kamian Zeram has this.
Boxer Nick Blackwell is tonight still in an induced coma. Stable, but no one can be sure how well he'll recover. And sat behind the newly claimed British middleweight belt and a Union Jack, Eubank's junior, senior and coach. Not, they said, in the mood for high fives.
No celebration by my family, Team Eubank, has happened and will not happen until Nick makes a full recovery.
Clearly the appropriate thing to say when a man's life potentially hangs in the balance. But what to make of Eubank Senior's words on Saturday night when he appeared to tell his son to ease off?
Well, you're not going to take him out to the face, you're going to take him out to the body.
Why did you say that? Was it because you were worried about his health?
Most certainly it was said to protect the fighter. He had already won the fight, in my view.
In other words, he says he could tell Blackwell was in trouble. But what about Eubank Jr. in the crucible of the ring? Not a fair question, he said.
Was I worried about Nick?
You mean during the fight?
You can't really ask me that because it's, I'm in there, I'm in a fight. Nick is there trying to punch me in the face. So you can't ask me, am I worried about him while I'm fighting him? It's tough.
For Eubank Senior, sad parallels with Michael Watson, who suffered life-changing brain damage after losing to him in '91. It left British boxing bankrupt. They were forced to revolutionize medical care. Which means 25 years later, Blackwell was seen by brain specialists immediately. But just how dangerous is boxing? The data may surprise.
I was there at the Beijing Olympics. This is when James DeGale won his gold medal.
Dr. Mike Loosemore is official medic for the British Olympic boxing team.
Boxing is dangerous. Most professional sports, contact sports, are dangerous. There's always a risk of a severe head injury, a risk of a broken neck, a risk of a broken back. These are all real and current dangers in many sports. Boxing, in fact, the risk of that happening to you throughout your career is relatively low.
Low the risk may be, but it happens. And with the Eubanks, history has repeated itself. Nick Blackwell still in a coma.
Well, earlier I sat down with Chris Eubank Sr. and Jr. I began by asking Eubank Sr. whether he would have given his son the advice to leave Blackwell's head alone if the match hadn't been so one-sided.
My objective is always to actually steer Junior in so many different levels. And, with what was happening, I could see that there was no sense in going to his head anymore, so I said.
Because he was winning anyway?
Yes. And so, to stop a fighter who can absorb punishment to the head, the best thing to do is to go downstairs.
So it is really about winning at the end of the day, isn't it? Because if you hadn't been in such a strong position, then you wouldn't have given that piece of advice.
Of course, as a father, as a trainer, as a mentor, he wants me to win. If it's an extremely competitive match, it doesn't matter how hurt the guy is. If I'm in danger, he wants his fighter, his son, to be able to come away with the victory. It's just the fact that it was so one-sided to why he decided to tell me, leave the head alone.
Because I was about to say that chivalry seems to be alive in British boxing, but actually that's only up to a point, isn't it? Chivalry is only proportional to the ability to win.
Yes.
You have to win because it's this is not a game. This is you play football, you play cricket, you play rugby. You don't play boxing. You have to win.
So if it's about winning, Does this sort of advice that you gave to your son give him mixed messages? Does it get confusing in that white heat of the actual
Your line
fight?
of questioning isn't conducive to a good interview.
Why is that?
It just isn't. It's not going anywhere. You're asking me. This is.
What's wrong with that line of questioning?
It's unfair.
Well, why is it unfair?
Because the objective is to actually score your points. I mean, if anything, I will tell you, if anything, the view I have, which is a rule of thumb, this fight wasn't an exception in that I gave him this advice. It's a rule of thumb. If you don't need to actually land shots to the head, then don't. It was a command I gave him in telling him to go to the body. A command. I walked back and I left him to it. Then he has to actually make his own decision.
And when your father gives you a command as your coach, you always obey that command?
If it's the right thing that I feel at the time, at the end of the day, I am still in the fight. I still have a man in there attacking me. So you still have to do what you believe is right.
So you had that famous fight with Mike Watson 25 years ago, which changed Mike Watson's life and arguably also changed your life in many ways. What do you regret most about that fight 25 years ago? Watson's inability to function afterwards, or what you, I guess, would have described as your loss of edge after that fight?
I regret it happening. This is a human being, a man with a mother, a man with a life in front of him. Life, the most magical of all things. That he was incapacitated. This is not, that's not what this is about for us.
If you had the choice of having Nick Blackmore in perfect health, he didn't have to have an induced coma, or holding onto your belt, which would it be?
That's not a fair question. I'm not going to answer that question. This is my career, this is my life. I'm in there to do a job. I don't wish any harm on anybody outside of the ring, and I wish him a full recovery.
The two Eubanks talking to Matt earlier.
I've been getting away with it all my